Hello friends, I am Andrea Lake and I am going to be working today on a layout featuring the SCT CT alphabet die that you can find on the website. You can see it comes all in one piece. I would recommend you leave it that way. We'll talk about that on the video. And I am going to be using the Reasons to Smile collection by Shimel with American Crafts. It's one of the new collections from a recent release. And this is a 12 by 12 page. I'm trimming a couple of pieces smaller. The wood grain piece is trimmed at 11 by 11, and then the white piece to frame it is 11.25 by 11.25. And this is a very special layout for me. It is a selfie I took when I first received the copy of the magazine, the first copy of the magazine that had my name as part of the design team. So those are very, very happy tears. That was a really fun, memorable day. So my layout, I'm going to be using the metal die to spell the word believe. That is my word of the year for this year. And then I am also going to use the die to randomly add some letters on the background, on the upper half of my page and I'm going to die cut those using the same pattern paper from that background. I don't want to get much of it. I just want to get the texture and help the word believe and those letters those are going to be in a different color, and I want those to pop. So I'll show you what I mean in a little bit. You can see me, I added some machine stitching around the edges of that background. I added another piece of pattern paper and some foam tape to add that smaller background piece to the actual background. I'm separating those two pattern papers with that strip of a third pattern paper, and you notice that the scalloped piece, that is from the Adventurous collection. It's just the branding strip. Okay, I am going to select, before I start die cutting and doing the rest, I'm selecting at least the piece that I'm going to use for my journaling, and then that second piece of pattern paper I'm going to cut to size to then bring my die cutting machine and start the die cutting process. You can see when I'm talking about making sure to keep that die the same, that die as one piece, it just makes it way easier to cut and to work with. Easy to store, easy to cut. It's small enough that you can that it won't take you, or you won't waste that much paper if you have to die cut that piece a couple times to get the letters that you need. In this case, just to get the word believe, I will have to run that die at least 3 times to get the letter E, the 3 times, the number of times that I need it, right? But you can see the idea is mainly this. I'm gonna die cut it using that wooden paper a few times. And then I'm going to add those pieces to my background. The letters are going to be randomly added to the page, glued to the page. The idea is not really for the letters to be seen, it's just to create some kind of texture and add a little bit of dimension to that background. This is the second time, and two things. One is, in order, I will be gluing those using liquid glue. So I'll add liquid glue to each one of the letters and add them to the paper. One thing you can do is, before you die cut those letters, if you feel that you're going to use more, that you're going to use enough of them, that it's going to be worth avoiding having to add liquid glue to each one of them, you could use a sheet of double-sided tape and then die cut it, and then all you have to do is peel off the adhesive protector that those pieces have. Otherwise, this is how you would do it. Just die cut it. I've mentioned this before, but when I'm creating my own embellishments or doing some die cutting and things like that, or stamping, I like to create and do or cut or stamp or color more pieces than I expect to use. I prefer to, once I'm done with the die cutting process, I'm done. I don't want to have to, the die cutting or stamping, coloring, right? I don't want to have to go back and do more of that when I'm already ahead of, or I feel that I'm a step ahead. So that's why you see that there are lots of letters. And then one thing that you can do is you can decide if you're done with those and you want to throw them away, or depending on what it is, those could be pieces or embellishments that you can keep for a future project. One thing I'm doing here, so I already have 1, 2, 3 rows of letters that have been glued to the paper, and I was ready to add the last one. I noticed that I would have ended with a big or bigger than wanted spacing at the bottom of the letter, so I decided to come up with that 1/4 inch strip of paper. It matches the pattern paper that I have at the bottom, and it ended up looking even better than it did before. So I'm using my foam adhesive, and this is from Scrapbook Adhesive by 3L. Adding my photo, and then I'm gonna go ahead and glue my word. The one thing that I'm doing with these letters, so I die cut them using a piece of cardstock. This is a cardstock from the Color Vibe. This is from Simple Stories from their Color Vibe collection. But the one thing I did was I took one of the previous ones, the wood grain letters, and I glued those two together to make them thicker, and then I added those letters to the page. It's time now to start to create some layering. I ended up being a little bit surprised on how I ended up adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even like almost 7 layers to the page, but it's not very dimensional. So I try to use liquid glue or regular double-sided tape to create some of those layers. You can see me still using some foam squares. I love the color. Now that I'm seeing these stickers again, I really like the color palette in this collection. It is so bright and happy, and it was just perfect for me to work on this page. I use the letters, they're already glued on the background, and you cannot really see them, but if you look closely, it's one of those things that I like on pages and mini albums and paper crafting projects in general. I love when you get to those pages or those projects where you're looking at them and it's like, oh, but look at this. Oh, it also has this. And maybe every time that if you're flipping through an album or you're flipping through the pages of an album, you can actually discover new things every time you look at them. And we're gonna add some enamel dot trios, few of them, as well as we'll add a few on the center of 3 of the flowers, and then it will be time for us to start working on our journaling, and that is it. And one more thing that I love about dies, that you can create so many things. You can use them for so many projects. You can die cut the papers in so many different colors. So there are so many options and so many ways in which we can use these products. So this is a page. I hope you enjoy the process. Please make sure to check the blog post. There are more photos and more details on the page, as well as all of the links. And you can also find all of the products that were used to make this project in the description box below, as well as the blog post. Again, this was Andrea Lake, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.